there has been a massive shift in the way that women think about relationships. And I want to start with something that's not talked about enough. Women have changed, and most men have not. Women are doing the emotional work. Women are doing the healing. Women are doing the therapy. They're reading books. They're listening to podcasts, learning about trauma responses, boundaries, and emotional intelligence. Women are asking themselves real questions. What do I want? What am I tolerating? What patterns am I repeating? Do I actually enjoy this person, or am I just filling a void? And I know from personal experience that this happens a lot because we are trying to live up to societal pressures. I myself got married for all the wrong reasons, and I take responsibility for that. I crumbled under societal pressures. I was tired of people asking me why I wasn't married yet. Yeah, I was almost 30, but the truth is I never wanted to get married. I never dreamed of my wedding day. I remember when I was 18, I was working, I was at my job, and an older woman had asked me, because I believe I had mentioned I was about to graduate from high school, and she asked what my plans were, and I told her what I was planning on doing, and she said, well, won't you get married and have children? And I said, no, why would I do that? And she said, because that's what you're supposed to do. And that was the first time that anything like that had really ever been said to me. Now, there had been insinuations throughout my whole life as a girl, of course, that, that was the goal, to be chosen by a man. And I've talked about in past episodes what my upbringing was like, the view of women and men. But that's my first memory of something specific like that being said to me. And it basically continued until I got married. I really felt like the world would not see me as a worthy woman until I did marry. I let other people convince me that I needed to be married to be worth something. I let other people convince me that not being married meant something negative about me, and that's just not true. I face it now in my 40s being single, mostly from men who I know are insecure, because to them, a single woman means they aren't being chosen. It means we don't need them for survival. And deep down, they really feel that's the only reason a woman would ever settle and be with them. But I do occasionally get it from women as well. And again, it's an insecurity. Perhaps they're not admitting something to themselves and they're projecting it onto me. But we have one life to live, and I'm not living it for other people. I'm living it for myself, and I want to live a happy life, and I want you to live a happy life too. Whatever that looks like for you. If that looks like being single, I can relate to how difficult that is because it's not widely accepted. Society will constantly question it. Your aunt at the family reunion will question it. So trust me, I get it. And that's why I'm doing this topic and why we're taking a harsh look at men. Not because we're here to blame men, but we're also being realistic and honest about it. They play a part in this because some women would choose to be in a healthy relationship versus being single. But because that's so rare, because men are not leveling up, they're choosing to be happy single. And some women just straight up want to be single. They don't care what's out there. They just want to be single. And because of that, women are raising their standards. Not impossible standards, not childish expectations, just normal expectations that should have been there all along. Effort, consistency, respect, emotional safety, follow through, not just words, but actions to back them up. Reciprocity, basic partnership energy. But unfortunately, many men are not offering any of that today. And it's not because they can't, it's because they've never had to. It's the first time in history where women can actually say, no, I'm good on my own. I'm not going to settle. I'm not going to mother a grown adult. I'm not going to chase, beg, or convince someone to show up for me. And that shift is uncomfortable for a lot of men because the women who would have settled in the past are now choosing themselves. So let's talk about why single life is working for women in a way that it never has before. Well, women have built their own stability. They have their own income, their own routines, their own hobbies, their own support systems. They own homes. They are no longer waiting for a man to complete the picture. There is a deep sense of peace waking up and knowing your day will not be determined by someone else's mood, effort level, or lack of intelligence. Women don't miss being disappointed, being dismissed, being confused, being breadcrumbed, being emotionally neglected, being lied to, being in a relationship where they feel alone. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You will never feel more lonely than you will feel in an unhappy relationship. And some women do miss companionship, but they don't miss chaos. Men often miss the comfort of a woman. Women miss the idea of partnership. Those are two very different things. This is why single life can feel calm and grounding for women, because the alternative is often much worse. And when people comment on social media and say, oh, well, obviously nobody wants you, nobody wants to date you, or you just hate men, or you're bitter, or you're the common denominator, all of that is projection. Because the only people who get angry when a woman refuses to settle are the people who were benefiting from her settling. You see this from men because they benefited so much from women settling in relationships, where they were providing so much benefit to the man and getting little to nothing in return. And you will also see this from women. When they see women finding the strength to be alone, and they know that deep down they are unhappy and they would rather be alone, but they can't find the strength. They're scared to be alone. They will lash out at women who have chosen to be happy single than be in a shitty relationship because they don't want to admit the truth to themselves. And that is projection. A woman who is happy in a relationship doesn't care if another woman chooses to be single. People only care when they feel like it's saying something about themselves that they don't like. I've had women lash out at me, and when they didn't get the validation and sympathy that they were expecting, they'll say, well, it was so easy for you. I can't afford to leave. Or we have children. Okay, well, guess what? I was a stay-at-home mother and wife. I didn't have any of my own money. In fact, when I said I wanted to separate, I was completely cut off financially. That didn't stop me from leaving. I was unhappy and I faced my fear. It wasn't that it wasn't scary for me to leave, but I knew I did not want to live the rest of my life unhappy. And I didn't want my kids thinking that that was the picture of a healthy relationship. Okay, so let's talk about this second half of the conversation. Why is it that relationships benefit men more? And why is that something that women are now noticing? Men in relationships statistically live longer, report higher levels of happiness, experience more stability, and feel less loneliness. A lot of women in relationships report the opposite. Most women take on the emotional labor, the mental load, the scheduling, the nurturing, the conflict resolution, the emotional regulation, the household management, even where both people work full time. Women often become the therapist, the planner, the caregiver, the manager, and the stabilizing force. And that is not because men are incapable. It is because many of them have been raised in a way that taught them that they do not have to carry the same emotional weight as women. Men benefit from companionship, affection, someone remembering everything, someone regulating the household, someone emotionally grounding the relationship. Women often lose time, emotional energy, mental clarity, peace, personal goals, space to reset. So when a woman chooses to stay single, she is often choosing her health, her peace, and her energy. It's not about hating men. It's about not wanting to lose herself. Modern dating is making this gap even wider because women are noticing how low effort so many men are these days. Women are noticing the entitlement. They're noticing the insecurities. They're noticing the lack of emotional maturity. They're noticing the lack of accountability. And so many women are simply not tolerating it anymore. We're not in the era of just simply being grateful that somebody's interested. We're in the era of, does this person add peace to my life or does he drain me? And the thing is, men are not adjusting well to women having higher standards. Instead of rising to the occasion, many are responding with anger, blame, name-calling, defensiveness, shaming, insulting women, accusing women of thinking they're too good just for wanting to be treated with respect. Because if they admit the truth, they would have to grow. They would have to reflect. They would have to take responsibility. Some men have, but most will not. So women choose single life, not necessarily because we want to be alone, but because it's peaceful. So what do we do with all of this? First, we stop apologizing for choosing ourselves. We stop explaining why we have standards. We stop letting men guilt us for not settling. We stop believing the narrative that a woman's worth is tied to being wanted by a man. Women are redefining what a meaningful life looks like. And that's really powerful. Second, if you choose to date, you do it with intention. Does this person bring consistency? Does this person bring emotional safety? Does this person add to your life? Does this person make your life easier or harder? Third, you let men show you who they are quickly. No convincing, no potential, no endless chances. I say no second chances. When they show you who they are the first time, you believe them. You observe, you decide, and then you move on. Women are allowed to want love. They're allowed to want partnership. But women are no longer willing to lose themselves in the process. And they shouldn't. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I know that it can feel heavy and also validating at the same time. And if you are a woman who has chosen single life lately, or who has stepped back from dating, I want you to know that there's nothing wrong with that. It's not because you're bitter or broken. You are just choosing peace. And that is something to be proud of. And if you feel like you are repeating patterns, or you're confused about what you want, or you're struggling with standards and boundaries, or you want support in rebuilding your confidence, this is the kind of work that I do with women in my coaching. I'll leave the link in the show notes if you ever feel like chatting. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like, follow, subscribe. I really appreciate it. It helps me grow and reach more women who can benefit from these types of conversations. Until next time, choose yourself first. Your life will thank you.